Tonight, debating the deal with former Taliban captive Bowe Bergdahl in Germany, his parents back in Idaho.
I'm so looking forward to seeing your face after these last 5.5 years.
Congress asked questions. Why weren't lawmakers notified? And how dangerous are the prisoners the U.S. released in return? The plane crash that killed a media mogul. The NTSB arrives outside Boston to figure out what happened.
This is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jeff Glor with a Western edition of the broadcast. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel says the deal was made to save Bowe Bergdahl's life. Tonight, Bergdahl is being treated in Germany before returning stateside. His parents, who had yet to speak with their son by Sunday afternoon, sent messages to him through a press conference in Idaho. While in Qatar today, the 5 members of the Taliban the U.S. traded arrived at an airport to hugs and smiles. New developments today and more questions. We have a series of reports beginning with Brigad Shaban.
5 years is a seemingly endless long time, but you've made it.
Janie and Bowe Bergdahl used the television cameras to speak directly to their son, who's still recovering at a military hospital in Germany.
I'm proud of how much you wanted to help the Afghan people and what you were willing to do to go to that length.
Bowe Bergdahl says he and his wife have yet to speak with their son over the phone, waiting, they say, until he's emotionally ready.
My name is Bowe Robert Bergdahl.
Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl was the only American prisoner of war in Afghanistan. He was captured by the Taliban in 2009. The mission to secure Bergdahl's release was overseen by U.S. Special Forces yesterday morning and backed by multiple helicopters hovering over the Afghan-Pakistan border. Army veteran Dave Chalet is the former director of the Boise Valley POW MIA group and advocated for Bergdahl's release.
This was personal for you. For all of us, yeah. For all of us veterans, it was personal. You're darn right it was.
But behind the applause and the embrace the Bergdahls got from the president in the Rose Garden yesterday is the lingering question of how and why Sergeant Bergdahl separated from his unit, only to be caught by the Taliban. U.S. officials refused to comment on reports over the past few years that Bergdahl may have tried to desert his post when he walked off base unarmed. In Bergdahl's hometown of Hailey, Idaho, residents say their 5 years of prayers have been answered. Lori Samus is a friend of the Bergdahl family.
Whether it's a month or 5 months or whenever he actually is able to come home, we're going to be here with open arms for him.
Here, the signs that once read, "Bring Bowe home," have been replaced with "Bowe is free."
I will see you soon, my beloved son. I love you both.
Sergeant Bergdahl is expected to reunite with his parents in the coming days, Jeff, at a military hospital in Texas.
Brigad Shaban, thank you. Some members of Congress are not happy about this deal, and Mark Albert tonight has more on that.
On Sunday, the Taliban released these images of the transferred detainees being greeted and embraced after arriving in Qatar. The men are among a group of 48 prisoners the Pentagon previously deemed too dangerous to release.
They are big, high-level people, possibly responsible for the deaths of thousands.
Senator John McCain, appearing on Face the Nation today, said although he is relieved Sergeant Bergdahl is coming home, the circumstances of the exchange disturb him.
If they re-enter the fight, then it is going to put American lives at risk.
By law, any transfer of Guantanamo Bay detainees has to be in the best national security interest of the country, and Congress is supposed to get 30 days' notice. But when the president signed the bill that restricted prisoner transfers, he maintained the right to act quickly if needed.
He consulted with his National Security Council on this. We were unanimous that this was the responsible, right thing to do.
All right. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel, who approved of the plan, was in Afghanistan Sunday, where he met with and thanked the Special Operations Forces who conducted the exchange. Hagel said they had to move fast.
Sergeant Bergdahl's safety and health were both in jeopardy, and in particular his health deteriorating.
But Republican Mike Rogers, chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, says Congress should have been notified and that the trade sets a dangerous precedent.
you've sent a message to every al-Qaeda group in the world that says, by the way, some who are holding U.S. hostages today, that there is some value now in that hostage in a way that they didn't have before.
Rogers and Armed Services Committee Chairman Buck McKeon both said this weekend they believe the president violated the notification law. CBS News has learned multiple committees in the Republican-led House are now considering hearings or investigations. Jeff?
Mark Elbert, thank you very much. All right, with us now is Juan Zarate. He's a senior national security analyst with CBS News. Juan, you served the Bush administration while these guys were at Guantanamo. In your estimation, do they re-enter the fight?
Well, these are serious and dangerous detainees. They've been labeled as high value and highly dangerous by the Department of Defense. It's why they were being held still in Guantanamo. There's no question that they have the ability to re-enter the fight. And at a minimum, Jeff, they present political and fundraising value for the Taliban, especially for the long term. And so this is a risky venture to see them on the loose and in Qatar.
Does this put U.S. soldiers and civilians at risk in the future?
Well, there's no question, Jeff, that in some ways we've contravened our consistent policy of not negotiating with terrorists. We have here, and we're all happy that the sergeant is back, or will be back with his family soon. But certainly the issue is now, have we put a premium on the heads and lives of American citizens and soldiers abroad? Will this incentivize al-Qaeda, which is constantly looking for prisoner swaps, to go out and capture more Americans? That's certainly a risk here.
The Afghan government was completely out of this loop. The Taliban was in it. They were involved in the negotiations. What does that say about our involvement with Afghanistan moving forward?
Well, in the first instance, it demonstrates a lack of trust in the communications with the Afghan government. The U.S. government did not want to upset the negotiations with the Taliban by revealing too much to the Afghans. But more importantly, it does signal a breakdown of trust and confidence in the Afghan government itself. And frankly, the reality that the Taliban is going to be a long-term issue and problem for the Afghan government, and one, frankly, they're going to have to deal with long-term.
Juan Zarate, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff.
The NTSB is now investigating last night's crash of a private plane at Hanscom Field just outside Boston. As Anne-Marie Green reports tonight, the 7 dead include a media mogul who was just completing one of his biggest deals.
The Gulfstream 4 was taking off from Hanscom Field in Bedford, Massachusetts around 9:40 p.m. Saturday when witnesses say they heard a boom and saw a fireball.
We heard a huge explosion and the house shook.
On board, 3 crew members and 4 passengers, including Lewis Katz. The media mogul and philanthropist was part of a group that recently won a contentious private auction to buy out other owners of the Philadelphia Inquirer, a longtime city newspaper. They pledged $88 million to turn the struggling daily around. Former Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell was Katz's longtime friend.
He wanted it for the people, he wanted it for journalism, he wanted it for all the right reasons. And Lou was a deal maker, but he always did things for the right reason.
Katz was also prominent in pro sports. A former owner of the New Jersey Nets and New Jersey Devils, today there was a moment of silence at Yankee Stadium where he was honored as a member of the Yankee family. Katz, an avid supporter of education, donated millions to his alma mater, Temple University, where he met his longtime friend, comedian Bill Cosby.
And Lewis always said the same thing to me. I love you, man.
He was in Massachusetts this weekend for an education fundraiser at the home of historian Doris Kearns Goodwin. With him, 3 friends who were also education advocates. The NTSB says it will be checking the plane's maintenance records, the crew's background, and weather conditions at the time of the accident. Anne-Marie Green, CBS News, New York.
Many men with prostate cancer delay chemotherapy treatments. A new study out today says that may be the wrong idea. Dr. Clifford Hudis is with Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. He joins us from Chicago tonight, where this study is being presented. Doctor, the study says men given chemotherapy early lived an average of 14 months longer than those who didn't receive chemotherapy early. Were you surprised by this?
Yeah, this is very surprising. For many years, we've looked at whether to combine treatments for cancer like prostate cancer or whether to stretch them out. And in many cases, stretching them out has seemed to be just as good. In this case, giving the chemotherapy right up front for men with advanced prostate cancer was associated with a remarkable improvement in overall survival.
So does this change treatment recommendations moving forward?
For the subset of men who have bulky disease, higher volume disease, this should certainly influence the way doctors approach these patients.
Dr. Clifford Hudis, thank you so much.
Thank you.
More information is emerging tonight about a man who was arrested for that deadly shooting at a Jewish museum in Brussels. He was raised in France but had spent time in Syria. Here's Holly Williams.
Belgium's federal prosecutor warned today that young Muslims from Europe are being radicalized in Syria.
All the European countries are confronted at this moment with this problem.
Mehdi Nemouche is accused of carrying out this deadly rampage inside Belgium's Jewish museum a week ago. Nemouche, a 29-year-old French citizen, was arrested on Friday in Marseille. Prosecutors say he was carrying firearms, ammunition, and a video claiming responsibility for the attack. They claim one of the weapons was wrapped in a sheet scrawled with the name of the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, an al-Qaeda-linked group fighting inside Syria. French authorities believe hundreds of the country's citizens have fought in the Syrian conflict. Nemouche is thought to have converted to radical Islam during a stint in a French prison. European interior ministers will meet later this week to devise strategies to stem Syria-related violence in their countries. Holly Williams, CBS News, Istanbul.
She had a career in television lasting over 40 years, but she was best known as Alice, beloved housekeeper and comic foil to the Bradys on the Brady Bunch. Ann B. Davis has died, we've learned now, after a fall at her home. She quit show business after the Brady Bunch and devoted herself to Bible study. Ann B. Davis was 88 years old. Next up, the volcanic cloud that grounded hundreds of flights. Hundreds of flights were grounded between Australia and Southeast Asia this weekend, and this is why an eruption of a volcano in Indonesia has sent smoke 50,000 feet into the air. Most flights have resumed tonight. A mystery has been solved in New Mexico. For 4 nights in a row, an unexplained mass had been appearing on the weather radar near Albuquerque. Turns out it was grasshoppers, kicked almost 1,000 feet into the air by wind. It was a wet year and a warm winter, and that means more grasshoppers. The last surviving child of Winston Churchill has died, we have learned. While her father led Britain during World War II, Mary Soames volunteered on the front lines, serving with anti-aircraft units in Belgium and Germany. In later life, she became a historian of her own family, writing several books. Lady Mary Soames was 91 years old. And today our colleague Bill Plante is celebrating his 50th anniversary at CBS News. Plante, now senior White House correspondent, has covered every president since Ronald Reagan. He is currently in France about to cover the 70th anniversary of D-Day this week for CBS News. That is the CBS Evening News tonight. Later on CBS, here's 60 Minutes. I'm Jeff Glor, CBS News in New York. Good night.
Online, on the go, and now free on iPad. CBS News.